Ghosts. That's the song from Shattered Melody. Our own host, Sean, is the lead member in that band. God, Livy's got a great voice, doesn't she?
I wouldn't say lead. I play guitar. Livy's the lead member.
Well, you write a lot of the songs, right?
No, she does all the lyrics.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Ghost we each wrote half of. So, but no, she writes most of the lyrics.
Uh, so what have you guys been doing with that project lately?
Hopefully looking to record soon.
That sounds good.
Hopefully.
Anyways, we are back from our break. Justin,
Indeed.
you still there with us?
Indeed, I am.
All right. So I want to jump into some of this other stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into ufology. Why not? I've heard plenty of theories in ufology, and I've got plenty of my own on the subject, but I've also listened to a lot of what Nick Redfern has to say on the subject of Men in Black. I know a lot of you out there are thinking, oh yeah, the movies with that one guy, Will Smith and stuff, but no, that's not what I'm talking about at all. We're not talking about government agencies in this. We're talking about a more gothic, paranormal kind of, almost demonic Men in Black. Are you familiar with Nick Redfern, Justin?
I am not actually.
He writes for a UFO magazine. He comes on Coast to Coast once in a while, and he's got a book called The Real Men in Black. And I think what he had to say, and all the reports that he's collected over the years about the Men in Black, and even dealing with the Mothman sightings in Point Place, West Virginia, are really, really frightening and telling, because it sort of connects the UFO phenomena to the paranormal, to not necessarily the supernatural, but I mean, how to explain it, if you guys aren't familiar with the subject matter. A lot of the reports of Men in Black are more to the point where these people show up at the door, they knock once, they don't brandish any ID, weapons, or anything. They don't say they're from any kind of organization. They just kind of tell you, they don't even ask to come in. You just most of the people that encounter them just kind of let them in, and they ask you if you've seen any type of phenomena, even if you haven't told anybody. In a lot of the cases, sometimes people reference them smelling like brimstone, or that they don't look right. They're too short. They have sort of a British accent, but they don't have any real inflection. They don't speak like humans do. That sometimes they just vanish out of nowhere. They wear the black fedoras and drive the old 1930s cars, and even to the point where saying they have kind of bulging eyes and pale skin. And there was a couple reports where another person was in the room, and this other guy was telling them, saying basically, make them go away, while he was lying in a hospital bed. What do you think about that? I know there's not a whole lot to go off of, but I figured that at least someone would have known a little bit about this stranger MIB, or this stranger aspect of the MIB mythos.
I think it's actually profound. It's quite chilling. I feel that's. I mean, I I've heard of these Men in Black, but I haven't heard the details like what you were just explaining to me. I think
Yeah.
that that needs to be looked into a little more there. That's pretty frightening.
Well, if I'm recalling this correctly, there are even reports going back as far back as the alchemist movement, when people were delving into alchemy and messing with, I guess, trying to turn silver into gold and transmutation and stuff like this, which was basically quote unquote high science back in the day. People black coats or cloaks right on horses used in some cases would appear to these alchemists telling them to stop their activity with kind of a veiled threat. And that's kind of what happened in Point Place and a lot of other places where people have encountered men in black, quote unquote, after seeing something strange or delving into something that maybe they shouldn't delve into. And what's kind of interesting is that a lot of people who get into this kind of stuff also have sort of a background in the paranormal or even witchcraft.
Witchcraft. I'm familiar with witchcraft. I'm actually familiar with the correlation in between magic and science, like you mentioned with alchemy. So that makes sense. Perhaps I should get a little more into this and see if I could get them to appear for me. Be the easiest way to study them better. And I think that's really profound, though.
And when you say appear for you, what do you mean? Like conjuration or something?
No, I want them to show up at my door and knock once and tell me to stop what I'm doing.
Well, have you heard about some of the shutdowns of our silos, the nuclear silos,
Yes, I have.
and the correlation between the MIB and that?
I'm not familiar with the correlation between the two, but I can see where this is going.
Well, I I don't have all the information in front of me. I just thought of this off the top of my head. Yeah, there is a huge correlation between UFO activity, the stranger Men in Black phenomena, and some of the shutdowns of our silos. Like they just become useless. And there have been there's been a little bit of disclosure on this too, but it's still being kept pretty quiet.
Yeah, it's almost as if like they're EMP silos or something similar.
Who knows what kind of technology they have, but the
Yeah,
just like especially because they almost sound like, from what I've heard from Redfern and a couple other sources, is like modern day vampires, you know?
right.
And just that concept is so foreign to the idea, what we feel, what we think of them collectively, at least in America and through our pop culture. It's really unsettling because what does that mean for the UFO phenomena in general?
Yeah, that's like I said, it's definitely shocking and chilling. You said they're appearing around UFO phenomena?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Whenever someone, not whenever, not obviously, some people don't ever encounter any of this
Right.
stuff, but it is there's a huge correlation.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's rather undeniable right there. I mean, they could be simulacrums, if you're familiar with the term. Perhaps they're
I am
something
not.
that. All right. Well, a simulacrum is basically a fake body, like a false human. Like an example would be, humans witness UFO phenomena, and these ETs send down these simulacrums, which are similar to us, to try to keep the the event hush hush.
Hmm. That that is kind of interesting. What do you think, Sean? He's sitting there kind of quiet right now.
I'm actually reading about something else. In all honesty, the Men in Black they're actually really love because there's a lot of. I'm not sure if I want to say hard proof for it, but there's so much about it that it seems really plausible.
Yeah, that's exactly
And
the thought I had too. Go on,
yeah,
go on. I'm sorry.
I don't want to say, oh yes, this totally exists, or I can show you right now how this works, but there's so much about it, and so much of it correlates together and matches stories put out by other people that it's hard to ignore that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's much like the UFO phenomena in general. There's such a
Oh
large body
yes,
of sightings. Like,
yeah, oh, yeah.
what was the statistic that I quoted on the Ancient Aliens podcast? 1 in 5 people that you know right now have seen a UFO. Actually,
I'd
two
almost say two.
two and
I'd almost
five.
go. I'm not gonna lie.
Because I know Sean and I have both seen UFOs. I've seen 3.
I believe we've seen one together, no less.
Yeah, I think so too.
I've seen a couple myself, or so I believe, though I believe it pretty strongly.
But I mean, especially with some of the reports when it goes back to ancient history and these black figures appearing, telling people to
Hmm.
stop what they're doing, and the correlation between the brimstone kind of smell, it makes you wonder what the hell is really going on.
Yeah, the brimstone actually really interests me. I want to figure out, what could the smell of brimstone mean? Like,
Uh,
what would give them that kind of scent? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
it's like a sulfurous kind of smell, you know?
Yeah.
And what would produce that naturally for it not to be a paranormal phenomena? Because yeah, I'm not seeing much of a unless aliens are in contact with demons and spirits and stuff, and saying, "Hey, would you go down and talk to these people, knock on the door, tell them to stop doing this shit?" You know,
Well, maybe the thing is
we'll give
that
you a cookie.
demons are ETs.
That is another theory that demons are extraterrestrials or something, but yeah, I almost don't like that theory because I like the idea of not being alone in the universe. You know, I like the
Yeah.
idea that that these aliens are out there coming here to, wait for us to wake the fuck up, for lack of a better term.
Well, I would agree with that, but I'm sure that there's more than one type of ET that observes us, where you have some that, want us to awake and, join them, and I'm sure that there's others that don't want us around.
I'd
I mean,
argue
that would
that
be pretty plausible.
I'd argue that spirits and demons and whatnot couldn't really be considered extraterrestrials because obviously we've been dealing with these spirits for a very long time on this planet, since before Judeo Christianity or even paganism. So they're entirely terrestrial in that aspect.
Or perhaps more so, they're extra dimensional beings. And this is something that a lot of people don't look at. I mean, we quickly say that, oh, they're coming from a different planet, or somewhere else in the universe, but what if they're coming from a different dimension altogether, like a parallel universe?
Again, a really good theory, but I mean, where's the data? I mean, this show's supposed to be all about the proof and whatnot, and we have mentioned some, but I think the subjective aspect and the volume of stories that come out, however percentage are true versus however are false, is kind of irrelevant because even if 1% of the UFO reports, the MIB reports, the paranormal reports, or even the stuff on the Illuminati turns out to be true, that's unprecedented. Unprecedented. I mean, there are
Hmm.
8 billion people, approaching probably 9 billion at the moment. I haven't looked at the statistics because it's a little frightening.
Just
But
over 7 billion.
and 1% of 8 billion stories, quite a big number.
Yeah.
So I'd argue that that's a form of evidence in and of itself.
Hmm. I would agree with that.
Is there anything that I've been talking for a long time and bounce? Is there anything you guys want to bring up? We've got about 40 minutes left in the show.
Well, it's funny. This kind of made me laugh in a really stupid way. I remember we were talking on our very first podcast with the Hollow Earth theory,
Man,
which
I don't.
I find just complete crap. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah,
but
I'm not gonna. I agree with you actually.
yeah, it's dumb. But I was trying to make a joke about it because you said that the Men in Black were maybe working with demons, and they're smelling like sulfur and brimstone and stuff. I was like, oh, maybe it's the Hollow Earth theory come true, and that's where the Men in Black are from. And it made me laugh.
What, they're like spawning from sulfur pits down in the deep bowels of the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what they're like a whole nother race that just lives below us, just comes up and is like, hey, stop fucking with our shit.
Well, that's interesting. I was on earthfiles.com the other day, and that's Linda Moulton Howe's website. and she's doing a
Right.
story, a recurring story about this pyramid that's supposedly been discovered up in Alaska. It's really interesting, and I'll probably post up the link on the website via a news bulletin or something, because I think people should listen to the interview of this military guy, and he's basically saying that while he was working counterintelligence for a while, he ran into some information. He saw a news broadcast in the early, I think, '92, and the news broadcast, after seeing it, hearing about it and stuff, he goes down to this news station on this about this pyramid being discovered and how it's bigger than the Great Pyramid at Giza. He goes up to this news station to purchase a copy because he's really interested, and they say they don't have it, that they never aired the the news story. In fact, no one has it, and some guy comes up to him, long story short, and says basically that they ran it, but it's gone. So they were got to, basically, to use, somebody got to them. And he does some more digging, and he, while he's at this government library and he's researching some stuff on Alaska, two guys in uniform come up to him and tell him, "We know what you're looking for. Stop digging into this." You know, and one thing that they said, I know this is a little subjective, but Linda actually does a lot of really good research into some of this stuff, that they don't want us messing with things up there anymore. And the other guy in uniform turns to him and just kind of glares at him like, "Why the hell did you say that?" So I think everyone should take a look at and listen to that interview. Obviously, when the show's done, don't do it right now. But it's really telling. If there is a pyramid up there, I think there should be there should be expeditions and stuff going on. Apparently, there are tons of lost pyramids that are in China as well.
I remember hearing about that.
I've heard about it. Yeah. With our newer technology, we're able to look at the land in ways we haven't before, and we're finding, buried ruins of these pyramids. Not just in Egypt, but yeah, like you said, in China as well, and I'm sure in other places in the world soon.
Even Gobekli Tepe, which we mentioned in the Ancient Aliens podcast, was buried before.
Hmm.
A lot of these ancient sites have been buried, and it makes you wonder if there's a correlation.
You know, I think there has to be. I mean, what's profound to me about this too is, when we unearth sites like this, the ones that we do find and we do unearth, it's not just the ruins themselves that are interesting, but the age of the ruins. Like these ruins are older than, anything we found, and that changes our entire view of history.
I agree. And perhaps that's the reason why it doesn't get a whole lot of play. Whoever's in control, they don't want history to change. They like it
Hmm.
where it's at. They like us believing what we believe now. I mean, as an old English teacher of mine used to say, history is just his story. It's up to your interpretation.
Hmm.
I
Those are
find
wise words.
I think so. You know, I don't know if how much that can go into, but anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Paul Benowitz and the how his what he saw and what Ray Stanford saw, and even some of the photos, because I got a couple photos from Paul Benowitz's films that he took over Kirkland. How that this kind of unravels the UFO phenomena in a lot of ways. Basically, in 1979, for those who aren't familiar, Paul Benowitz filmed strange lights over the Albuquerque, New Mexico weapons storage area. Mr. Benowitz owned a company called Thunder Scientific outside of the gates of Kirkland Air Force Base. And Thunder Scientific had contracts with the military, Air Force, etc., and had an interest in Paul, not the company, had an interest in UFOs and the cattle mutilations that were going on at the time, that are still going on, I guess. He met this guy named Gabe Valdez at an FBI cattle mutilation news conference, I believe, and that's how their relationship got started. Paul calls after a while seeing these lights and warns the staff at Kirkland Air Force Base about these strange unidentified lights, thinking that these things could be a threat to the base. At some point, they call him for a meeting. The Air Force puts Paul in touch with a man named Richard Doty. According to legend and some of what Chris Lambright has said in his book X Descending, with the help of another ufologist, Bill Moore, Doty gives Benowitz a bunch of equipment to, quote-unquote, listen in on the aliens. So Doty's name can be tied to a lot of UFO documents that came up in the early 80s. MJ-12, Aquarius, you name it. And several others are, according to Chris Lambright's book, X Descending, a disinformation campaign to mislead the public. And that, interestingly, an early version of MJ-12 was originally meant to be released through Paul Benowitz. Doty has since admitted that he allowed Benowitz to believe that he was indeed in communication with aliens, when Doty and Air Force agents for special investigations knew he was not. In fact, as of June 17th, 2012, Doty emailed George Knapp during a Coast to Coast program, where Chris Lambright was a guest, and confirms this. All of this, long story short, led to the discrediting and mental degradation of Benowitz.
Really?
Yes. Paul Benowitz is now dead. Chris Lambright interviewed him once and got a box filled with mounted photographs from what he'd seen over Kirtland.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know any of that.
Yeah, I mean, the point of all this, if MJ-12, if the underground bases, if all of that shit that came out of this is indeed just a disinformation, and if the Air Force was willing to carry out such a complex campaign to make this happen and to discredit this guy, it makes you wonder, what the hell was Benowitz really seeing? And, why would they go through such an effort if, as they say now, the government is not interested in UFOs, they don't care about it, all that jazz? It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, see, I didn't know about the whole MJ-12 being debunked thing.
Yeah, it's been debunked for a long time, and in fact,
Never even knew it, to tell you the truth.
I think I'm going to put up a couple of these photos for you guys to see right now. Because I think you guys need to see a couple of these photos just to get the impact. Seeing them. And I'll put them up on the website as well. Because really, cool. Once you see them, it's a little hard to deny the impact that they have. But the Benowitz story, it's... I was deeply impacted by this because it kind of turns you on your head, because you hear about all these different theories, like underground bases, and...
Yeah,
it's if
kind of
all of that
right now.
all of that isn't true, then what is?
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes back to, if you hear something from someone else, do you really have information? Do you really know something?
Very true.
And information is always going to be secondhand unless you see it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of that right there. Right. Let me find these real quick and put them up on the website. You guys can quietly talk amongst yourselves while I do this. If you want to get rid of the dead air, that's cool. If you don't, whatever.
I'm not gonna lie, I was texting. I've got nothing to say because I've always been really fascinated with the MJ12 thing, and it's in a way heartbreaking to hear it like just shot down.
Well, think about how it was introduced, though. Think,
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's absolutely true.
in a way,
But
that's more
in a lot, like
satisfying.
NBA, MJ12, and I hate to say this because it's a total nerd thing, factors into a game I love growing up called Deus Ex. It was a big part of the story, and it's weird now that you know, it's a weird blow to like the nostalgia of that game.
Why is it doing that? Whatever. I gotta add a tagline.
Taglines are important nowadays.
Maybe, you know, he was getting too close to the truth. Like it was gonna hit him too
Yeah,
close to
absolutely.
home, so they had to debunk the information in order to cover their butts.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. All right, these should be up. I'll get you guys the link real quick so you can take a look at these. Sorry about the dead air, people. We're still
We're not,
working out the
we're
kinks
not
of.
great at this yet.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I
Uh,
really want to see these pictures.
yes, it was. So I'm waiting on him for him to go up.
All right, you got
There
those?
we go. Fantastic.
I'll go ahead and put that URL up on our Facebook as well.
Okay, clicking now.
Oh
And
wow.
and for some of you guys that are listening that don't have access to our Facebook or haven't liked us, shame on you. Go ahead and go to beerandcigarettesradio.com/WordPress, and you'll see them. It's the newest post right now. Just look at the images. There's not a whole lot of wordy information or anything. Just look at the images, absorb them, and say thank you.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, look at these energy fields.
that's a subject for an entire 2 hour show in and of itself. But yeah, I when I saw these images, like I want to get this book X Descending just for these images, just in case Chris Lambright comes on. He's saying, "Hey, they took images from me book or something." But yeah, I do want to get that book because he's got some good freaking photos and stuff. And apparently, this guy named Ray Stanford that Chris also interviewed has a treasure trove of stuff like this that he's just been observing for 50 some odd years. And that when you see this stuff, it's not our technology. I mean, the problem is, of course, I don't know if this aspect of this can be linked to the paranormal or the MIB. This looks like real technology. It looks like force fields of some sort that are manipulating
Oh
our
yeah.
our
Yeah,
electromagnetic.
definitely.
I mean,
Especially that one on the right.
oh yeah, incredible. I hope you guys that are listening are checking out these photos. You guys sound a little stunned.
Yeah, this is pretty profound.
Sean, what you
David.
saw last year, do you remember when we did our, I guess you could call it pilot podcast?
Yeah. Test run.
Yeah, our test run.
Which one? Refresh, because
You're,
you're not the one I saw in my backyard during the daylight with the shield.
yes.
Oh yeah, so I had to think. Yeah, I'll tell that story. I was moving the trash cans out to the car for trash day. It was about 6 in the afternoon, still daylight out. Um, I literally looked up and saw what looked to be maybe a 20 or 30 foot I don't spherical shape, sort of like a giant like shape of like a giant Skittle. I can't think of the actual name that shape is.
Elliptical.
Um, yeah, there we go. Sorry, I slow. Um, for about a split second, and I literally saw like a green blue flash circle around it, like an overshield or an energy shield, and then it just gone.
Yeah, that's one of the things why I thought you'd find these images very interesting because
Yeah, in
this,
fact, in the images, the image A, there's the close up of the one on the left, that blue green. That's
yeah,
about what I saw, that color.
that's interesting. Man, there we go, a correlation between a report and a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
I'd call that pretty striking subjective evidence right there.
Like
But that's me.
that's pretty similar to what I saw even.
Yeah. There are a couple other photos floating around the internet and whatnot, but I found these to be especially telling. I mean, some of the photographs that I've seen, if you look at the cover of Chris Lambright's book, X Descending, you can. There's an image of. I think this is actually an illustration of another image. There's an image of a ball of light that's speeding through the atmosphere with a tail behind it and two small glowing spears coming up from the bottom and top of the plasma ball, whatever you want to call it, the energy sphere. And one of the theories behind this was that these these little poles of energy actually propel the device and make allow it to defy gravity. And uh,
It sounds like a form of electromagnetism.
Yeah,
yeah, and some electric universe proponents believe that some properties of electromagnetism and electric energy actually create the effect and manipulate gravity. And there has been a couple experiments when it comes. I forget the name of it exactly, where they have used electromagnetism to basically levitate objects. So I'm thinking there's a lot of credence to this, and there needs to be more research into this. I think,
I would agree with that.
but those photos, man.
yeah.
Ooh,
No,
I've seen a few UFOs myself. One of them was decidedly metallic, and I saw a gleam roll across its disc-like shape as it rolled through the sky. It was about sunset. So around kind of the time that you saw yours, Sean, around 5 to
I
6
remember that.
p.m.
Yeah,
California time. And it just, like, within half a second, maybe even less, it was gone. Like, I literally looked away and looked back up, and it was already gone.
Yeah, that's a characteristic that a lot of UFOs have is they're gone in an instant. And in my research, they normally come in two forms. You have your saucer or dish shape like UFOs, or you have triangle shaped UFOs
yeah.
that,
That's
yeah, that tend to travel in
Or even the
formation.
cigar shapes. The cigar shaped UFOs. I know someone that's seen those, or at least one of them.
The ones, the two separate occasions that I saw were triangle shaped. I haven't seen a cigar shaped one.
I know someone that saw a triangle shaped UFO when they were a kid. Actually, I won't name them though because they haven't really given me permission to do that. But yeah, I saw another UFO that was actually two energy base spheres, really similar to the photos that I just posted up on my on Into Transcendence, that are that were a reddish kind of orange and a bluish green kind of intertwined with each other, and they just zipped right through the sky from east to west. And I saw them for maybe like a tenth of a second, and they were gone. I think that's probably the most telling one that I can remember. And I saw another one at my sister-in-law's graduation, and it was just a silhouette in the sky, moving very fast, disc shape, and moving from south to north in the sky, and I mean, it was rather unremarkable. Besides the fact that it was an object that I couldn't identify, didn't have any wings or anything like that, and yeah, do you think there's some sort of correlation between the differences between these energy type craft and these decidedly more metallic ones?
Um, there could be. I mean, it could be differences in UFO technology. I mean, perhaps when you see a metallic UFO, that is a human-made craft, like a government test flight or something. And then when you see a UFO that, has ionization or, electromagnetism of some sort, perhaps that's when you're looking at the real deal right there.
Yeah. Uh,
Or maybe, simply, when you see a metallic one, you're catching it with the shroud down.
it's possible, and it's possible that you can have the same type of effect and manipulation of gravity, if maybe not at the same speed, without having that intense light. I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
I'm not sure actually. I don't know. I would think you probably are seeing it with in a certain kind of light, but I always wonder if they want to be seen and have these things told. 'Cause it would seem weird to have their shields down for a split second and flip them right back up.
Yeah, I mean, or it could just be I mean, we really don't have any understanding of how the technology works if this is
No,
advanced
that's true.
technology. So, I mean, it, it's it it's tough. Like, it's really tough to really form any sort of opinion about it because you just don't know enough.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, what was it? Ben Rich. He said that I believe he worked for the Air Force for a while or something. When he said we've had the technology to take ET home all along for a very long time. Obviously, there's a huge cover up going on, and I think the fact that we have so many different um, what was it? We have so many different accounts coming from ex CIA, ex Air Force, ex you name it, and people that have recently come out of the government and come forward anonymously, even however you want to take those. The I think there's enough evidence that the common person who just should start looking into this. We'd be able to possibly have this unraveled if everyone took an interest. And the problem is there's so much disinformation, such as what MJ12 and Aquarius might actually be, and what happened to Paul Benowitz, that it's sort of, I want to say, taboo. And it,
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
can
the
see.
problem is, you know, when you get close to, unraveling a mystery like that, if you were to ever find like good, strong evidence, it seems like it's always just torn down so quickly. And I can see how that would be discouraging for somebody to want to seriously attack it because if you learn anything, you're going to be silenced.
well, I mean, I think the point should be that you should keep doing it anyway because there are reports of people that have been, say, to go back to the MIB phenomena, that have been interrogated by the MIB and given this veiled threat, and they told them to go for, to get the hell out of my house, and they basically turn around unsatisfied and leave. Now there are reports where the exact opposite, like terrible shit, starts to happen, but you know we people need to be more ready to defend themselves and say, no, something's really going on. We need to look into this. One of these days, I want to go up to Ray Stanford's home or something, hopefully not unannounced or anything. Find out where he lives, and I want to see these videos for myself. I want to see what he has, and whenever I do, we're gonna do a show on that. I'll
All
probably
right.
I'll be in the hot seat, and I'll talk about what I seen or whatever, because I'm genuinely interested after hearing about this Paul Benowitz case. That I, I I don't think we're ever gonna necessarily get to the bottom of this in our lifetime. Not necessarily, unless 2012 ends up being the first contact with some form of aliens or something. I don't feel that the government's ever going to actually willingly come out with this stuff. They're going to have to be forced to come out with it. Someone's going to have
Oh
to
yeah.
blow the top off it. But the question is, with all the surveillance and I mean, with the Patriot Act and whatnot, where they can gather information at will, where they're probably listening to this radio show right now, or something like that. It's one of our listeners right now. It's the government.
And the real question here is, I feel, is are we ready as a race to accept the existence of aliens? Like if, tomorrow came and, aliens showed up and, they made contact and they're like, "Hey, like we're here, undeniably we exist." I mean, what are the repercussions of something like that?
Well, I
And
think
that's
this is another point that nowadays we've been saturated with aliens and stuff in the media for so long, perhaps on purpose. Who knows? That if a UFO were to descend on the White House lawn or in front of the Pentagon or in front of City Hall or something like that, and aliens came out, we might not be as shocked as, say we might have been in the 1940s or 30s or even 70s. I mean, a lot of people, a good majority of the people, believe in this stuff. They just don't want to come out and say that they do. They have a theory. Pretty much everyone you talk to, or at least that I've randomly questioned, just maybe out of boredom, have you seen a UFO? What do you think it was? And they've got a theory. You know.
I think there's still a stigma there. There's still a fear of some sort.
Well, of course.
Like people want to believe, but if it really happened, you know, but like you were saying earlier, more people just need to look into this and keep at it, and you just get rid of that.
And maybe that's part of what we can do with the show when we're not talking about movies or video games or something. We can dig into this ourselves too and bring up some information, do a little bit of investigation,
Before I
investigation.
forget, I'm thinking about it. I read this book called The Day After Roswell. It's probably one of the best books I've come across into reading about UFOs and the Roswell crash.
Okay, go on.
It was written by retired, what was his name? Colonel Philip J. Corso, I believe. He was in the Air Force, if I remember correctly, and he was retired, and he had a hand in the cover up, and all after all those years passed, he finally came out and he wrote this book with the help of an author, and he put this book together, and he just recounts, you know, going through being involved with the crash, talking about the secrecy involved in it, and he was actually given access to a massive file about UFO sightings and um, a level of contact with UFOs that the government had had. And I mean, they were basically keeping tabs on it, not just at Roswell. And, he was going through this file and he was tasked with, keeping it secret and learning more about it for the government. And the book goes on to say that, like, it wasn't just the U.S. that was seeing these UFOs; it was worldwide, and there was not just a crash in Roswell, but crashes around the world, like in Russia. The Russians had come across it, and when he talked to these other governments, they basically said, "Yeah, it's no surprise to us. Like we all know that these UFOs exist." So it's just a really interesting book to read. Like you really have to read it. It's really interesting.
Well, Justin, that's another point that I want to come across, and perhaps Sean's heard about this as well. But a lot of the European nations have come out and disclosed a lot of their UFO reports, especially with the police, and I believe Wales have done this as well. And I I haven't really dug into the reports or anything like that, but
Yeah, I actually wasn't aware of that.
you weren't aware of that? Yeah,
No.
they've come out and they've disclosed a lot of their reports. The U.S.
Huh.
is one of the only big nations, power holding nations, that has held on to these things.
Huh.
So there's
Odd.
it makes you wonder if there is all of these reports, if we don't know what they are, because the reports probably don't really shed too much light on what exactly these unidentified objects are, then why aren't people more interested? Well, I think the bigger question is, why are people more focused on the Kim Kardashians and what's Lindsay Lohan snorting this week,
Right.
rather than, what the hell's going on with our planet? Who is visiting us? That's an issue that humanity as a whole needs to attack.
Yeah, we definitely need to be more aware of our surroundings and really aware of our surroundings.
Because according to ancient astronaut theorists, as they say in that show, these UFOs have been visiting us for a very, very long time. And I've seen some of these images and even posted them up on my blog, where there are people in what look like ancient spaceships and spacesuits in these frickin' trinkets that look like planes. And there's artwork from from the Renaissance period, and even cave paintings of UFO shaped
Hmm.
objects.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all of those. I actually looked into that, and it's really astounding and profound information because to me, it's irrefutable evidence that aliens were here and are still here. I mean, like, when you have these little figures and these spacesuits and everything, I mean, these cultures, these civilizations had nothing like that at the time. They had to have, come in contact with some external force to be able to what's the word I'm looking for? Coming into contact with these beings made such an effect on them that they wanted to draw about it, that they wanted to create figurines about it. And back then, when you drew something, it was a big deal.
It meant something. It was like taking a picture. This means something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If you build it, they will come. But yeah,
War never changes.
thanks, Sean.
Oops. Gotta stop clicking on stuff.
I thought I
Check the
thought you did that
page
on
and
purpose. Honestly,
no, 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 no. I went to check the web page and I
well,
started up.
that's made it into the mix. And you know what? It was good timing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can
My
always
bad.
use that soundbite. Well, what about the idea that we are sort of at war with these things now that that soundbite has played and it's in my mind? What do you think about that?
I don't think we're at war with them.
You think, but do you think that they've weeded their way into our government, like some people suggest? Like, there are reports and there's a little bit of evidence to suggest, especially with the cattle mutilations and abductions, which we should have covered a lot earlier. I think all the abduction reports and cattle mutilations that they have a deal with our government to experiment on us.
I could wrap my mind around that. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
I
do I.
mean, I, I'd say more accurately, we could be at a conflict with them, but not a war. I mean, people need to be more aware in order for something like that to happen, which I think we should be.
I agree. I agree. But there is a theory that a roommate of mine, a friend of mine, used to talk about a lot, and he used to say, "Well, if you were an alien species and you wanted to survey us, and you wanted to keep yourself kind of low profile, wouldn't you stick to more of the rural areas, the hick towns and whatnot, to be a little more crass and crude about it?" And it does kind of make sense. I mean, a lot of these cattle mutilations. Have you seen the photos of these things?
Yeah. But the question I've always asked is,
Why do it?
why pick cows? Like, why go for cattle?
Maybe cows are the most intelligent species on the planet. We just don't know it.
Well, I mean, in the Hindu religion or in Hindu mythology, I mean, they revere cows. There could be something more to that.
Who knows? But I mean, I think it's more of a. Uh, Honestly, there's no fucking way I could come up with a theory of why whatever is surveying us, whatever's watching us, whatever's abducting us, what have you, whatever we're seeing in the sky would go and mutilate a bunch of cows. Crop circles, though, crop circles, they have gotten to a point where they're so mathematic that they surpass some of our knowledge of mathematics.
You know, I'm
Here's
really
for
glad that you brought up crop circles because, yeah, I mean, the crop circles that I was just looking at pictures of crop circles yesterday, so I've seen some of these amazingly complex geometric designs. And in my mind, to me, the best way to pass on knowledge would to be able to leave something that will teach you as you try to understand it, you know, the math behind it. So, you know, they drop these crop circles down, and maybe as a form of communication, who knows? But in order to understand these crop circles, you have to expand your level of understanding. I mean, you can gain true new knowledge by trying to reach the mathematic level of these geometric shapes.
Well, another interesting point, because there obviously some of them are hoaxes. You know, it's obvious. Those two, what was it? Men from Welsh, they came out and said they were like 50 years old or something. They were using planks and pieces of wood to do this, but other research in some of these crop circles, there's just this weird kind of energy about them, this weird magnetic energy, and that the blades of grass are bent so perfectly. They are so perfectly laid parallel next to each other in these formations in the weirder crop circles that there's no real explanation. There's no paths leading to them when they're discovered. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I've I've read and seen stories where people visit these crop circles after this phenomena has happened, and they say that they can feel a buzz or a charge in the air. You know, where their hair stands up and they feel like there's some electric field there, or the sightings of UFOs in these fields, you know, and they go out the next day and there's crop circles there, but you know, they say the night before they see these floating orbs, you know, floating lights in the shape of an orb that fly around the crop,
or there's a
you
glow
know,
in the
stop and
field or
hover.
something.
Yeah, and then they fly away, and then you go out there the next morning and you have these crop circles.
Actually, there was a scientist that came on Ancient Aliens. I think I was watching it on Netflix yesterday before I went to sleep, and he was saying that he thinks these things are created by a massive plasma vortex. Now, he can say that there's a plasma vortex that creates these things, but he can't say what the source was.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of technology would you have to create a plasma vortex? That's
well, well,
far
I
beyond our
reference
understanding.
back to those photos where there are like these beams of light coming out from the top and bottom of the craft. So I don't know. Maybe there's a correlation between crop circles and the technology that allows them this extremely non-aerodynamic shape to bounce up and down at all sorts of different speeds and defy gravity. Essentially,
To me, it's almost like they behave like particles do. They just kind of bounce around all crazy. They can go in any which direction and just do whatever they want, really. Maybe they have some quantum understanding that just, you know, makes them possible, basically.
yeah. I really love this subject, and I'd I'd like to get a couple other shows going on the subject of UFOs. Maybe we can get a little deeper into these things, do some reporting. Because, I mean, I mean, as the show is, we only have like a few minutes left. There are a few other conspiracy theories we wanted to get into, and what sort of evidence there were. Sean, did you have any you wanted to mention?
Well, I was going to bring up the 9/11 theories, but that's pretty much a show in and of itself, so I'm going to skip that one in all honesty.
All right. I can respect
There's
that.
so much about that it wouldn't do it service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. 9/11 is
Yeah.
that is a good one to tackle.
Well, I remember one theory. I'm just going to mention this briefly, and maybe we can do another show on this, get an expert on or something. The lack of wreckage, physical plane wreckage in the actual, well, in the debris of the towers is very suspect because all the reports they've come back and they said there's no real plane wreckage in what they've been salvaging from there.
It was like that for the plane that hit the Pentagon as well. There was a lot of
I've actually seen the
missing
Pentagon
wreckage.
recently, and there's a big rebuilt section. You can kind of see it in the side of the Pentagon, but there wasn't any real wreckage there either. It looked more like an explosion, and that
Hmm.
you know, and the reason why I bring this up, despite the fact that Sean wanted to kind of bypass it, is that
Oh,
what
on
if?
bypass, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
wait if we can do it
Yeah,
justice.
there really is a
Well,
lot to
yeah,
cover with that.
I was thinking that maybe there's a correlation between that and possibly even the UFO phenomena. Not to discredit it or anything or make it less weighted than it is or less of a tragedy, obviously.
I really don't think there is at all. It's mainly a political thing.
I would agree there. I don't think there's any correlation with the UFO phenomenon and the 9/11 occurrence.
Well, perhaps you guys are right, perhaps not. Who knows?
I mean, like you said much earlier in the show, I mean, we weren't there, so we'll never really know. I mean,
Exactly. We don't
you'll
exactly
never
have the
know. Yeah,
information. We only know
it could
what
go
we've seen in
anywhere.
photographs and television and whatnot. But uh, yeah, we've got like 5 minutes left. Are there any other things that you guys want to say in closing?
Not offhand.
Uh, I think that conspiracy is a good exercise for the mind, and I think that people should treat conspiracies a little more seriously, honestly, because I feel that there is some level of truth in any conspiracy. I mean, if people are questioning what happened, then the evidence needs to be looked at again. There's something wrong there, I feel. And it's good to keep thinking like that, to question, not to just blindly believe, what you see. It's good to question and delve into it and really understand something. And I
You,
think that more people should do that.
you know what? I do agree with you on that fact. I I mean, in some aspects, it isn't every theory in science, isn't every new bit of information that comes out sort of subjective and sort of like a conspiracy itself. The only reason why these things get such a taboo is because of the disinformation that surrounds them. There's so much information out there, so many different theories that they naturally just kind of gravitate away from it and say, "Oh, that's garbage" or something. And
Hmm.
it's sort of how I I was writing up a blog about this, and I'll post it eventually. That people have sort of an unnatural aversion to the unknown nowadays, whereas it used to be humans were extremely fascinated with the unknown, and it's almost like since this age of technology, TV, and all these different technological wonders have come out that we've sort of stopped looking, or that the average person has stopped looking because either they're too distracted or I don't know, maybe they're a little brainwashed.
Yeah, and I mean, we can use this technology to our advantage nowadays. I mean, the internet, I mean, you have so many people connected now. I mean, if more people really sat down and said, hey, you know what? Let's put our heads together and look at this and gather information and pull it together. I mean, you can really get stuff done. I mean, we really need to be taking advantage of that instead of just, letting the noise in our life block all that out. and just stay, narrow-minded or close-minded.
With all the possibilities for what you can do, especially, I mean, look at this radio show. We put it together in a month's time,
Yeah.
and it's pretty amazing what you can do. And getting the information out, no matter even if it gets debunked tomorrow, there's always another lead to follow up. There's always the possibility that you're gonna be able to follow another story up and come out with some form of the truth. But you need the pieces to the puzzle, and if people aren't paying attention, that's a problem. I agree. I wanna thank you, Justin, for coming on with us. It's been a good time.
Absolutely, sir.
Oh, it has. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Perhaps if you get some more information, or if you can do what you were saying you're doing, maybe learn those MIB, we can have you on again to discuss that as well, because that sounds like an interesting show.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into it. I mean, that definitely piques my interest.
All right. Well, we'll keep me posted, and I'll keep Sean posted, or keep us both posted. Whatever works.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
I will keep you posted, the both of you, definitely.
Anyways, I'm Nova, and
John.
our guest was Justin Garcia, independent researcher, on tonight's edition of Beer and Cigarettes Radio. Next time we'll be talking about our experiences on Ghost Road. It should be a really interesting show, and
Absolutely.
we'll do a little more announcements throughout the week as we plan for that show this week. Anyways, this is Beer and Cigarettes Radio, and I'm signing off. Do you have a call sign, Sean?
Yeah, I'll see you guys later. I really don't. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. Well, have a good night.
Good night, guys.